Hello, everyone. Welcome to Softcom. My name is Vera, and I'm here with another episode for you, the Ukrainians striving to improve their soft and communication skills in English. Today, my guest is Oksana Hera, a cross-cultural communication consultant. Thank you, Oksana, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for your invitation, Vera. Hello, everyone.
Oksana, can you tell us more about your educational background and professional experience?
Well, I would say it all started with my fascination for English, and eventually I did a master's in translation studies, which covered translation, interpreting, it means that during the whole process of studies, I was fully immersed in English and Ukrainian, so navigating at least two cultures and two languages at every given moment. And then I realized that I had more interest in teaching adults and helping adults who needed English for their jobs. So that was a very new area for me at that time. And at the same time, I saw a lot of interest and need for it, mostly within our local IT industry. And then English opened all those doors that I could have never even imagined, you know. I'm sure there is this feeling that teachers share when we are preparing for classes, we are learning a lot of new stuff. So my learners and colleagues have been my huge motivation. And thanks to them, I got to learn a lot about their work and about their challenges. So it let me do, for example, a certificate in international business English training, and then a couple of other certificates in cross-cultural communication, so that I could help people explore this context of communication better, and so that they are aware, at least, of the cultural elements involved.
Right, indeed, language does come along with its culture. You know, a few months ago, when I reached out to invite you to be a guest on this podcast, you mentioned you wanted to finish your current projects first, and then you'd get back to me. It made me wonder, was that really what you meant? Or were you just being polite and, diplomatically declining my invitation? So I decided to wait and see. And eventually you did get back to me. And here we are having this conversation. Thank you for that.
It's my pleasure, Vera.
And this situation represents a common cultural misunderstanding, not just cross-cultural, but even within the same culture. You and I both come from the same Ukrainian culture, yet I couldn't tell if you really meant what you said. This is also a common feature of English culture, saying maybe later instead of directly saying no. And I've encountered this kind of misunderstanding a few times when communicating with both Ukrainians and English people. What has been your experience with this kind of situation? Do you have any tips for understanding what people really mean in these cases?
You're so right, Vera. We have a lot of shared background in terms of our culture, and yet even communicating in our first language, we experience these different perceptions of how indirect someone could be. So your example of people saying maybe later, meaning never, is a very nice illustration of how easily we can fall into the trap of our own expectations. It's definitely true that this indirect way of expressing thoughts may be very widespread or more widespread in some communities. Still, it's up to us to work on how we interpret someone's words. We have to observe, learn as much as we can about the broader context of our conversations, and sometimes even challenge our own beliefs.
What kind of beliefs could these be?
Well, for instance, I know about many users and learners of English who imagine they would always speak English to someone from an English speaking country. All I can say is they may want to check the statistics regarding this possibility.
Right.
Here is another example. As a young professional, you are joining a new distributed team. English is the language used on the team. You've mostly worked remotely recently, and one of your goals on day one with your new teammates is to be polite, to have this positive impression. You are used to being direct, and you transfer this approach to every language you speak. You may believe it is both useful and polite, as you are not wasting anyone's time with your soft and sometimes elusive responses. And then suddenly it turns out that your new team never says no openly. What are you supposed to do in this situation?
That reminds me of a situation from my personal life rather than a business context. I remember wanting to make a suggestion to one of my native English speaking friends about our future plans. And she replied she would let me know later. So I followed up with the same suggestion later, as she had mentioned, but I sensed she was a bit uneasy about it and said she wasn't sure. It felt like she wanted to say no, but didn't quite dare to. And I remember feeling a bit awkward, bringing up the same topic again. A bit of a culture clash. So after that, I decided not to initiate the conversation myself anymore and to let her bring it up if she wanted. And she never did. Do you think this personal life experience can be transferred to a business context?
Such an interesting case, Virat. Thank you for sharing. I would say absolutely it can. And I imagine there are a lot of professionals who can relate to what you've been through in this case. You see, a very positive thing you did, you took the time and you let your friend choose the direction of your further conversations. In business, a lot of people actually focus on hitting the deadlines, doing everything on time. And they say, look, I have no time left for thinking what someone thinks, what someone believes in. I have to do my job. But after all, business is all about relationships.
Right.
And cross-cultural communication helps us to build these in the way that is expected and acceptable for everyone involved.
So only after building a relationship of mutual understanding can we build a successful business cooperation, right?
That's a very nice summary, Vera.
All right. Thank you, Oksana, for sharing your experience and opinions. It has been really an interesting and insightful conversation.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you all for joining us in this episode. We're going to continue our podcast with Oksana, so if you have any specific questions about culture differences, write them in the comments below, and we will try to cover them in our further episodes. Remember, our soft and calm skills matter. They change work and life for the better. Stay tuned.